Jaime Munguia makes a successful debut at 160 pounds with an 11th round stoppage of Spike O'Sullivan. Now, personally, I thought it was a decent performance by Jaime Munguia. I know some people are saying that he should have got Spike O'Sullivan out of there early, and Munguia was saying that he was going to take O'Sullivan out in 4 rounds? Reason being, David Lemieux, of course, knocked Spike O'Sullivan out in the first round. So people are expecting Munguia to do the same thing. Listen, people, for all of David Lemieux's flaws, and there are many, one thing he has is tremendous punching power. David Lemieux, is he at 168 now? I think he is. But at 160, David Lemieux was a phenomenal puncher. He didn't have amazing boxing skills. In fact, his boxing skills are terrible. Balance was very poor. Quite easy to get David Lemieux off balance. Defense is not good. I'm not saying he's cowardly necessarily, but he's not the most spirited fighter either, David Lemieux. I likened him in the past to a poor man's Nigel Benn, kind of a budget Benn. That's how I saw David Lemieux. And also, he's a little vulnerable around the chin, okay? But when it comes to punching power, Lemieux's right up there with the very best, when he was at middleweight anyway, the very best punchers in the division. So, I don't want to mark Jaime Munguia, who's a big guy at 154 moving up to 160. I don't want to mark him down too much for not being able to get rid of Spike O'Sullivan. Because Munguia has things which David Lemieux doesn't have. Munguia, even though he's not Floyd Mayweather either, he's more cultured in his boxing approach than David Lemieux. That really goes to show you how rough around the edges and uncultured David Lemieux is, technically, because Munguia is better than him. Munguia is more polished. And now that he's with Eric Morales, that's Munguia's trainer, you can see certain technical improvements as he goes along. He's very enthusiastic. He's very energetic. Morales is trying to bring some technique to the table, and it's working as far as I'm concerned. He's not a one-punch knockout artist, Munguia, but he does have respectable power. And the most impressive thing for me about Jaime Munguia is his energy. He's only 23 years old, and he fights like, well, let me not say he fights like, but he has the kind of energy levels that you'd expect from a 23-year-old. He has that youthful exuberance about him. And so he went in there, he was popping a jab against Spike O'Sullivan. He was using his height and reach quite well in spots. At times he was trading, of course. And O'Sullivan, at a certain level, is a decent puncher at 160. He hit Munguia with some shots, maybe buzzed him a few times, but never got him in serious trouble. And Munguia really proved to be the better fighter in the long run. The better boxer, the more durable guy, the more talented guy, the guy with the faster hands. And he eventually ground Spike O'Sullivan down. O'Sullivan, a tough veteran, he was hit low a couple times in the fight and he made the most of it. It's not like he wasn't hit low. He was hit low, but he made the most of it. He spat his gum shield out, tried to give himself some extra time to recover, but it wasn't really extra time to recover from the low blows. Let's face it. It was extra time to get his stamina back for the next exchange. That's what it was. So Spike O'Sullivan was pulling off the veteran tactics in there, making the most of the low blows, but it was to no avail because he got taken out in the end anyway, in the 11th. So, yeah, personally, I felt like it was a decent performance by Jaime Munguia. Now, Munguia is a former world champion at a lower weight, but he doesn't really have a champion's resume, does he? You look at the guys he's fought, there's nobody on his record particularly impressive. So from a boxing perspective, I'm not too hot on Jaime Munguia at this point. But from a marketing perspective, and when I say boxing perspective, I'm talking about his resume, what he's actually done, and where I would rate him in the grand scheme of things. But from a marketing perspective, and maybe even from a fighter development perspective, they're doing a good job with Jaime Munguia. You see, I don't like it when you've got somebody with a belt calling themselves a world champion, but they're not willing to fight everybody. And Jaime Munguia at 154, he didn't unify. But now he stepped up a weight division. He doesn't have a belt. He's on that same kind of trajectory, fighting the Spike O'Sullivans of the world. You know, not the best fighters out there, but these are learning fights. These are development fights. And they're also fights which allow Jaime Munguia to build his profile and grow his fan base. So I think Golden Boy are doing a very good job building Jaime Munguia's profile. We know that Mexicans love to support their fighters. And if you saw how enthusiastic the crowd were for this particular fight, in fact, they're always enthusiastic for Munguia fights. You can see that what Golden Boy are doing is definitely working. So yeah, they're doing well there. They're building him and they're also developing him as a fighter. So we'll see how far he can go. After the fight, he called out Canelo, Golovkin, the Charlos. He didn't mention Demetrius Andrade. Andrade, of course, is also a DAZN fighter. So that's somebody he really should have been mentioning. Perhaps that's someone who Golden Boy would rather avoid. You know, maybe they feel like stylistically, Andrade might be the most difficult fight out there for Jaime Munguia. Because Golovkin, he's an aging fighter at this point. He's not exactly a fancy Dan. He's going to stand right in front of you. And a young, enthusiastic kid like Jaime Munguia, particularly after Golovkin's last performance against Derevyanchenko, people might give him a serious chance now against Golovkin. He was supposed to actually fight Golovkin, was it a year or two ago, as a late substitute, but it never happened. Perhaps it could happen later on this year. We'll see. If there's enough money in that for Golovkin, would he do it? I mean, maybe if Jaime Munguia can pick up some kind of world title somewhere, fight Golovkin down the line, we'll see. And the other fights, Charlo against Munguia, Golden Boy are going to want it on DAZN. I would imagine anyway. Is Charlo going to come to DAZN? I mean, he doesn't seem to want to come to DAZN for Andrade. Maybe they'll put up more money for him to come to DAZN for Munguia, enough to tempt him over. And the other names, well, Canelo Alvarez, would he fight Munguia right now? Canelo Alvarez in the past has said that he doesn't like fighting fellow Mexicans. But of course, he has fought fellow Mexicans before several times in his career. I mean, numerous times when he was, you know, a young prospect coming up. But I'm talking about in recent years, he said he doesn't like fighting fellow Mexicans. Would he still feel the same way about Jaime Munguia? I guess it all depends on how much money he's being paid and how much he stands to gain from the fight. Again, if Munguia can pick up a belt, then maybe Canelo will be more interested. But will Canelo come back down to 160 again? That's the thing. He's been up as high as 175. Maybe 168 is the weight for Canelo now. Might be very difficult for him to get back down to middleweight. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you like Jaime Munguia? What chance do you give him against the top guys at 160? Jamal Charlo? Canelo Alvarez if he comes back down? Gennady Golovkin? Derevyanchenko? And others. Maybe even Chris Eubank Jr. Who knows? Drop your comments below. Let me know how you feel. It's Hatman. I'm out. Hatman merch is now available. We got t-shirts, vests, hoodies, and more. Just click the link below.